Hey, friends, it is TexAgs Rewind. I got a question for you guys. Does Ryan Tannehill owe Malik Willis any kind of mentorship? Do you have a problem with what Tannehill said, that he's not paid to be, or it's not his job to be a mentor? I think the answer can be two ways. It can be, I wish he didn't answer it that way. And no, it's not his job. And if you listen to the entire quote, you can have a different perspective of just that one line. It's not my job to be his mentor. And I get it. But comment below. Tell us what you think about it. Do you think he was okay in his wording? Do you have a problem with it? Should he be a mentor? Love to hear from you. As a reminder, we are brought to you by T-Mobile. They want you to visit T-Mobile.com/acrossamerica to learn how you can get value and coverage through T-Mobile. So during the Go Hour, we had that exact discussion here on Ryan Tannehill, OB, passionate with his thoughts out there. We also got, as we're kind of going all around our opponents here for Texas A&M, our spring updates. We got one from Ryan Fowler on Alabama, his thoughts on A&M spending some money and how big of a year it is for Bama. And last year really was a down year, not only because they didn't win the championship, but he didn't think the talent was ready for it at that point. Recruiting Country, Ryan Braunigner joined the show. He had some insight to get into with these high-profile recruits. And Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball. He's thinking good about A&M hosting a regional. We'll see how that all plays out. It is TexAgs Rewind. To give those who don't know the context behind it, the Titans drafted Malik Willis there. I think, the third round they got him, I believe it was. And he was, by many drafts, mock drafts, expected to go in the first round, starting quarterback caliber QB. And so here's Ryan Tannehill when he was asked about Malik Willis yesterday.
In a quarterback room, in the same room, we're competing against each other. We're watching the same tape. We're doing the same drills. I don't think it's my job to mentor him, but if he learns from me along the way, then that's a great thing.
Two things there. People went crazy because the headline was, "It's not my job to mentor him," and I don't think that's what the gist of what Ryan Tannehill is saying there. I think he's saying it in a full sentence. He's saying, "Look, it's not my job to mentor him, but if he learns by osmosis of being here, great." He's not saying I'm not going to mentor him. It's not my job to mentor him, but if he learns by watching me. I think we want to hear a certain soundbite from athletes, and I don't think he phrased it the way I would have liked, but I don't think it's also as bad as people are making it out to be.
I think if Aaron Rodgers said the very same thing about, what's the guy's name, Jordan Love?
Well, he kind of did, didn't he?
Yeah, and it's not a big story.
Yeah.
If tell me another quarterback that's out there that if Tom Brady says that about whoever, it's not a big deal. But Ryan Tannehill is polarizing up there. You either like him or you don't. So he says that you're going to jump on that part. And it's probably a poor choice of words. One of the things we forget is not all athletes are great public speakers. They're not politicians. They're not trained to make sure they say everything politically correct. They just talk from their heart, or maybe not even that. They're just trying to answer a question, and it's not something that they've thought out exactly what's the right way to say it. I'm not trying to make excuses for Ryan Tannehill. I would like, if I could have advised him, don't say it's not it's a competition between us. Just say, hey, I'm going to go out. I'm going to go out and do everything I can to maintain my job.
Yep. But if I can teach him a thing or two down the way, I will.
Right.
And I think that, so like Tomas Romo, who works here, I will do my best to help mentor him with what little I know, and not thinking he's coming for my gig. And if he is, he is. Like that's what happens in the workforce, right? There's always somebody gunning for, if you're the radio host of a show, if you're the director of whatever, people are coming for your gig that are under you. That's kind of, but if I can teach them along the way and make myself better for it, I will.
Oh, I understand you completely. I know Richard Zane's constantly offering to buy me a lunch that's, high calorie and high fat content, because as soon as I kick off, I'm dead. He could step right in, right? So, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to hope that he learns a few things along the way. but it's not my job to mentor. No. Here's what happens when you say it the way he said it. It sounds like you're more worried about me than us.
Hey, good morning to you guys. I hope all is well in College Station. It's always good to talk about football with those who love it like we do here in Tuscaloosa.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to chatting with you as well, my friend. So I guess the first thing off the bat is how does spring go for Nick Saban and company?
Well, I think spring practice is something that Nick Saban does a lot of experiments. He's always trying to find out, can you get the best 5 offensive linemen on the field? I think when you look at it from an injury standpoint, that's always good when you can survive spring practice without any significant injuries. And to my knowledge, they didn't have any. At least there was none discussed. I'm sure there was probably some bumps and bruises behind the scenes. The defense is going to be really special. When you look at Alabama's defense, you kind of start it with 2 guys that can get off of the outside the edge and to be able to put pressure on the quarterback, and they've got that with Will Anderson, Dallas Turner. But I think the emergence of Chris Braswell gives them another big option on the edge, and he's probably just as good as Dallas Turner. But Dallas was a freshman All-American, and he's going to lose his spot. So you got 3 guys that can really get after the quarterback. The youth at defensive line is growing. I think it's growing in numbers too, and I think that's a good thing when you look at it from an Alabama perspective. Secondary's loaded. You got a lot of good. You just go around the positions. It's the same kind of phrase. They got tons of talent. Wide receiver is a little bit of a concern. Jermaine Burton coming over from Georgia should be able to help Bryce Young in some production. They had several guys that were out with spring, didn't even go through the spring cup there, having some things cleaned up from the season. And then when you look back at that Tyler Harrell coming in from Louisville, will add to that. That wide receiver unit it's got a lot of youth, and they'll see if they step up. But the biggest concern is, and it's not a, hey, let's wave that Alabama wand and it's automatically fixed, is that offensive line is not where it needs to be. And that was obvious in the spring game. And, without an Evan Neal that we saw, get picked high and go to the New York Giants, they're without him. And so I think you could make an argument that this offensive line is not as good as it was last year. Now, they may get there at some point in the season, but right now, they don't look like they're gelled together as a unit. And I think that's the biggest concern coming out of spring.
My friend, you've been busy. This is where it starts to heat up. By the way, I was at Veterans the other day, and there was a lot of football going on. I'm assuming getting ready for 7-on-7. But there was a lot of kids out there.
So that's kind of what the football calendar is turned to right now is camps, some visits, but a lot of 7-on-7, whether it be the travel 7-on-7 teams, but also the state qualifying tournaments for the state 7-on-7 tournament, which is here at Veterans later on in the summer, the hottest 3 days of the summer, always. And you lose a lot of fluids out there covering that stuff because they're long days and it's hot and there's nowhere to run from the heat. But that's a really cool event for us because it's in town and a lot of the best players in the state are coming here to compete. But that's what you're seeing a lot is 7-on-7 happening, and then guys going to camps and going to these combines and these workouts. And A&M coaches are out on the road. I had a new offer go out this morning after the coaches went out and saw a kid out of Melissa, a 2024 defensive lineman named Nigel Smith. Picked up an offer this morning. That's a kid that Hal's extremely high on in the 2024 class, likely a top 10 player in the state in that class, if I had to guess, just based on measurables and tape and all that kind of stuff. And so good for A&M to throw their hat in the ring there. I'll be out on the road later this week, going to hit a school in Houston. Next week, going to hit some schools in Southeast Texas. I got a Hill Country, Smithson Valley, Converse Judson, maybe a couple of Austin area schools, try to get that done before the end of the month. And then we go into summer, and the first week of June will be the second week because the first weekend is really like the first or second, I believe, is that first weekend is nothing, but the second weekend and the second week camps start here on campus, and then we'll have official visitors and starting that second weekend in June and through going throughout the remainder of the month. So, and I'm sure we'll start to hear about plans for pool parties and maybe an end of the summer event to get everybody ready for the season. So there's a lot of stuff coming. I know it's been really slow this spring. I was actually on the phone with Jason last night. Last cycle in 22, all the action was in Houston. Mm-hmm. And in 23, it's kind of shifted up toward Dallas, or quite a bit of it shifted up toward Dallas. And he was talking about, Jason, he hit 2 or 3 schools yesterday, and he was like, yeah, man, when it's fun when it's your turn to be the busy one.
Right.
When your area is the busy one, he goes, and then when it's your area is down, you feel like you're scrapping for any kind of content that you can. And so the roles have kind of flip-flopped this year with a lot of the talent being in Dallas, and Jason will do, no question, he'll do a great job of covering everything that A&M's got going on up there in the Metroplex. But, yeah, I'm still hitting some schools. A lot of my focus in Houston has been on some 24s and 25s. That's just where the majority of the talent is in Greater Houston right now. So it'll be fun to mix in some trips to Southeast Texas as well as to the Hill Country.
All right, so are A&M fans going to complain?
I would think not.
Okay,
because this week we have A&M as the number 7 overall national seed.
I love that. And I highly encourage everybody to go check out D1 Baseball to get the great analysis there. And we'll try to go around the topic, but not completely in it, so they have some good info there. So last night wasn't necessarily pretty, but it's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Sets up an interesting series with South Carolina, and they're winning, and I think that's what matters.
Yeah, no doubt. And just to kind of tie this into projections a little bit, the thing about it is when you look at A&M's remaining schedule, one of the big reasons we're so high on them finishing as a top 8 is projecting the remaining schedule. When you look at Texas Arlington, and that's a team that obviously early on in that game they kind of go through the doldrums a little bit. But they got their act together offensively later in the game, won that game, so you'll take it. And then you get South Carolina and Mississippi State at home, and then you go play an Ole Miss team who by that point honestly could be reeling quite a bit. And I think the schedule sets up really well for this team now. Jim would be the first to tell you that South Carolina, when you look at the series wins, granted, those series wins are at home, but when you look at their series wins and you look at Will Sanders and Noah Hall and guys like that, they can absolutely beat you. But the schedule sets up really, really well for this team right now.
Talking to Kendall Rogers here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. So this is kind of I don't call it a loaded question, but kind of a loaded question. How has your opinion of this team changed over the last month? Because obviously victories and winning series does change it, but the way they're playing baseball.
Yeah, I think you phrased that perfectly, and I think the way they play baseball is what has stood out to me. I think this is a team that, last night's a prime example. They're struggling early, and just later in the game, like you just felt like, hey, they're going to have an inning where they score 5 or 6 runs in ball game. And that's kind of the way I've felt about A&M for the last month. Like other than the Vanderbilt stinker on Saturday, like I felt like they had a shot, or I felt like they were going to rally in pretty much every game they've lost. And so to go from where we started with this team to where they are now, where you're almost kind of expecting them to win every game on the weekend, late in the later inning. That is quite a stark contrast. So, I think when you look at this team overall, I mean, obviously the big key down the stretch is, they're going to need to get Micah Dallas right. He's going to have to kind of dial things back in as this team looks ahead to the postseason. And granted, it sounds crazy. I get it. Like, a month ago, if I would have said this, you would have thought I was borderline insane. But at this point of the season, and I get the Schloss is looking ahead to the conference tournament, but at this point in the season, your goal is a top 8. Your goal is getting to Omaha. And for this team to get to Omaha and overachieve this year, guys like Dallas are going to have to be really good down the stretch.
All right, so it's May the 4th, and we played a lot of Star Wars music during the 9 o'clock hour. Are you guys big Star Wars guys? Curious, let me know below. Did you like I like The Force Awakens. I'm talking about the new ones. And what was that, Rogue One? That was really good. I thought I was going to like the other 2 that came after. I wasn't very impressed with them. At the time, I liked them, but it didn't hold up to the test of time. But super excited about Doctor Strange. How do you guys feel about that? And did you see Dave Chappelle got tackled? What would happen if you got tackled at work? Would you fight back? I want to know. All right, like, comment, subscribe, big comments on all these random stuff. I don't care. Thanks so much for watching. It's TexAgs Rewind.